Here we are with my old friend, colleague, and Hall of Famer Steve Flink in a beautiful Italian way, living for anybody who is living in Australia and around the world. We have Yannick Sinner, 48 years after Adriano Panatta, able to win a slam. Unbelievable.
Ubaldo, you were there. We were talking about this the other day. I thought it was a great story that you were there when Panatta beat Harold Solomon in tiebreaker in the fourth set to win Roland Garros. And you knew that if Panatta had gone to 5, he was probably going to be too tired, too weary to win that match. So that I know how vividly you recall it. I do too, because as an American, I was hoping for Solomon to get the victory. It was the best chance he ever had to win a major. But Panatta was a great player. And so, by the way, is Yannick Sinner.
Yeah, well, it is unbelievable the way that Sinner has made it through, because on his tournament, he beat first number 5 in the world, Rublev. Then
Yes.
the number 1 in the world who had not lost one single semifinals in 10 times, in 10 semifinals in Australia. Then he beats Medvedev after losing the first 2 sets. I mean, honestly, sometimes some slam winners had a lucky draw, but it wasn't the case for Yannick Sinner, who already since the first round, he had to play one of the best players outside of the seeds, because Van de Zandschulp, the Dutch guy, he was a former number 22 in the world. So
yeah. Yes.
So, I mean, I think he really deserves to win this slam. And well, I mean, in the last 5 months, he was able to beat 4 times in a row Medvedev, 3 times out of 4 Djokovic. He won a Master 1000, 2 Masters 500, 2 ATP 500. Was in the finals, and won the Davis Cup, and now a slam in 5 months. I mean, that's, I think, is huge.
It is. I mean, it's all part of, in his mind, it's why he became more and more convinced that he could win this tournament, because he was building for it. He'd had kind of, frankly, I thought he'd sort of underperformed up until he won that Masters 1000 last summer. Yes, he'd been in the semifinals of Wimbledon, his first semi at a major, but I felt like overall, considering how good he's been for the last 3 or 4 years, he didn't fully do himself justice. But then that Masters 1000 got him going. Then he had the great fall where he was runner-up to Djokovic in Turin after beating him in the round robin, beats Djokovic in the Davis Cup final from triple match point down. And then the 3 wins he had over Medvedev, which I think became very important today when he made his comeback, because in the back of his mind, he felt like he had won some very tight, hard-fought contests against Medvedev late last year, and that he believed he could beat him again, because he had lost the first 6 matches in their rivalry before winning the last 3. Yes, he's definitely authentic. He's definitely worthy of this his first major title, and there will be many more for him, no doubt about it.
Well, I think so too, and of course. Now we don't have to get overexcited as the Italians sometimes do, including myself. But the first slam that Roger Federer won was in Wimbledon 2003, when he was 22 years old, and he beat Mark Philippoussis in 3 sets. But so that means that I honestly don't think that Sinner can equalize the record of Roger Federer, but he's 22, and so I think he has plenty of chances to do well again, and for the next slams, also because Djokovic cannot last forever, and with all the other players, now he starts having a better record.
Everything you say makes sense. What I most look forward to, Ubaldo, is this. Yes, Djokovic can't last forever, but Djokovic will be, he'll remain in the forefront of the game for a few more years. So in the short term, I think he and Sinner will have some great matches. Djokovic was not really Djokovic in that semifinal, in my view, especially for 2 sets. He didn't even resemble himself, but Sinner took full advantage and then After Djokovic won the third set from match point down in the tiebreak, Sinner got the one break early in the fourth after Djokovic led 40-love on his serve and closed it out in four. But I think they will have some really excellent matches against each other the rest of this year through next year. But then in the long term, the rivalry I most look forward to will be Sinner versus Alcaraz, because Alcaraz is in a slump right now and hasn't won a tournament since Wimbledon last year. But Alcaraz has two majors already because he won the U.S. Open the previous year. So, and I think and he beat Sinner from match point down at that U.S. Open in 2022. So I really look forward to the Alcaraz-Sinner matches for the next decade and the Sinner-Djokovic matches for the next 2, possibly 3 years, but certainly 2 years.
Yeah, I do agree with you. It is true that Djokovic didn't play for sure at his best. He said that probably was his worst match in a slam, and probably was right because 6-1, 6-2 in 1 hour or so it's not Djokovic. You know, I say it must be the cousin of Djokovic playing the first 2 sets. But but then I want to add, once Djokovic wins the third set, saving a match point, at that moment it was you needed to be very solid mentally, very strong, not only physically but especially mentally. And Sinner was able to forget the match point because he missed the match point with the sort of unforced forehand.
Ubaldo, you know what? Some people keep saying that. I didn't think it was that easy, though. First of all, he had a great return. Then Djokovic fended it off, and then he hit another pretty good shot. Djokovic hit a fairly low ball down the middle, slightly cross court. Sinner tried to take it on the forehand. Yes, you could say it was unforced, but it was not a terrible error. And then Djokovic played 2 good points. But you're right. Sinner didn't panic, and he buckled down in the fourth. And as soon as he broke Djokovic to go up 3-1 after Djokovic had led 40-love in that game, he played with a lot of self-assurance, and that's to his credit. But I will say this: Djokovic didn't have a single break point in 4 sets. So even though his ground strokes and his own serve improved in the third and fourth sets, he never returned the way he normally does. And that was shocking to me, that he could never even reach break point, much less secure a break of serve.
Yes, it had never happened in a slam for Djokovic to not even reach a break point. So I do agree that was quite extraordinary. I mean, the situation. But I remember at the same time that before the final, Sinner had saved 26 break points out of 28. So he showed that he performs very, very well when there is a pressure point. And even today, once he was down 2 sets to love, you would have expected that he would have been in troubles in the third set. While in the third set, the first 4 games that he served, he won it. The first one, even if he made a double fault, 230. The second one, 215. The third one, 215. The fourth one, to love. So he lost only 4 points in the first 4 serves in the third set. Then he breaks Medvedev when Medvedev is serving 5-4, 4-5, to stay in the match, and he breaks him, going immediately love 30 on the Russian serves, and then he could have gone 15-40. He made a mistake. Anyway, then what happens? When they go to the 4th set, they are 3-all, and Medvedev has a break point, which could be decisive. But Sinner, ace number 10. So, and then
he was
immediately
maybe
after he makes another ace. I have everything here in 1 page for the set, while Steve Flink would have 28 pages to write down the score of one set. You know, that's the
Well,
difference between me and Steve. We always tease each other because he needs I don't know one copybook of 200 pages for a final. I need one page for each set.
no, well, let me defend Steve Flink because he has a lot that's going on in his mind as well. Never mind the notes. You summed it up very well, Ubaldo, the match. Let me just go back to a couple of other key things regarding how this match unfolded. First two sets, Medvedev, I don't think I've ever seen him play better, more aggressively. He was hitting the ball. They showed on ESPN 6 miles an hour faster on the forehand, 4 miles an hour faster on the backhand than usual.
And then, sorry if I interrupt you, I've never seen Medvedev going to the net so
Yes.
frequently like he did in the first two sets.
Well, that was partially because he was hitting the ball so hard. He was creating the openings, and Sinner was hitting short balls, and Medvedev, he was just phenomenal. And here's the thing. Yes, that first set, Medvedev ran away with it. He broke in the third game. He broke again in the ninth game. 2 breaks. Breaks him twice in the second to go up 5-1. He'd had 3 love games in a row on his serve. And then suddenly he got a little tight serving for the set at 5-1. He lost that game. Sinner held. It's 5-3. And Medvedev at double faults on set point at 5-3 and then goes down break point. So he managed to get out of it and go up 2 sets. But honestly, Ubaldo, I think Sinner picked up a little confidence by the fact that Medvedev had trouble closing out that set. I think it carried over into the third set for Sinner. But then there was a big point again at 4-all in the third set when Sinner was at deuce. It was his only tough game on serve. It's deuce, and Medvedev missed a pretty easy forehand. And the look on his face, he was very disappointed because that's a chance to be up break point and maybe break and serve for the match. And he didn't get it. And Sinner was very good under pressure there. And then he broke, as you said. And then you mentioned the break point with the ace at 3-all in the fourth, probably the biggest point of the match, because I think if Medvedev would have broken there, most likely he'd hold 2 more times and be the champion. So that was a clutch ace because Sinner had been going out wide so often, Ubaldo, and that time he went down the tee beautifully. And then in the fifth, he kept, again, he was hardly losing points on his serve. He won by my count 20 out of 26 points on his serve. And Medvedev, I think, was pretty tired by then, Ubaldo. I don't think he was playing.
There was, I must say that even if you write all this in 128 pages in your block notes, you remember everything, which is great. And I don't know if you remember that there was, in the first game of the fifth set,
yes,
a rally of 39 shots.
Yes.
It was unbelievable. And Medvedev at the end couldn't breathe anymore. He was bending on his knees. He was, almost destroyed. Still, he was able to fight.
Yeah, no, they had some. They had a 3 or 4 27-stroke rallies. They had a 31-stroke rally, and then the 39-stroke rally that you just mentioned. They had some exhausting exchanges. But Ubaldo, I have to say, we agree that Sinner was a very worthy winner. But I feel some sympathy for Medvedev because it's the second time he's now the only player in the Open era to lose 2 finals from 2 sets to love up at the majors, because this one maybe wasn't quite as distressing as his loss to Rafa in 2022, because he's up 2 sets and 3-2 and love 40 that almost had it in the bag, and Rafa beat him 7-5 in the fifth. But this time I think he was so fatigued because he'd had 3 5-set matches on his way to the final, and his last 2 matches were, he had to come back from 2 sets down against Zverev. He had a 5-setter with Hurkacz before that, and then earlier in the tournament against Rusevori. He'd been through so much rigor in this tournament, and that's partially, I think, by the way, Ubaldo, why Medvedev played so aggressively, because he wanted to see, he got just what he wanted. He won the first 2 sets, and it's barely over an hour, and he's got the 2-set lead, which he could never have dreamed of, but it was partly the way he was playing, trying to end the points quickly. Then as the match progressed, we got more of those long exchanges like the 39-stroke one that you just mentioned. and it became harder and harder for Medvedev because I think his legs were getting heavier, and I think he was feeling the effects of the entire fortnight.
Yes, well, if you think that he reached the final having to face 64 break points, and he lost 23 times his serve. So today, Medvedev instead was serving pretty well. He was serving, I mean,
yes, much better, much better.
Much better. And
Yeah.
so that's why for Sinner wasn't easy at all. Anyway, you mentioned the fact that he's the only one to have lost two finals, being 2 sets up. And there were only, before today, 7 players who were up 2 sets and then they lost. And you for sure you remember Lendl McEnroe in 1984,
Of
which
course.
McEnroe for sure cannot forget. Then there is another Medvedev,
Yes.
which was the one who played against Agassi. So if you are called Medvedev and you're up 2 sets to love, you cannot be safe.
Yes, that's true. That's
And
true.
then
No,
there was
listen,
yeah.
But more important, just as important, Ubaldo, on the positive end, for Sinner to win his first major coming from 2 sets down, considering that he'd only lost 1 set the whole tournament, the one to Djokovic, where he had the match point. I think that was a very fitting way for him to finish off the tournament, because he had not been severely tested the whole tournament, tested by Djokovic, but not severely. And today, there he was in a dire predicament, as they say. I mean, he's down 2 sets and he's not really feeling the ball that well. His ground game is a bit off, wasn't serving his best. And yet then across the last 3 sets, he settled down and played some of his finest tennis. So it's a very, as I say, I think it's fitting, and I think it makes it more gratifying to him that he would have to back from 2 sets down to earn that prize.
Well, for sure. I say that now what could happen better for Sinner is to play the final in Roland Garros and beat Nadal. There is nothing more extraordinary than that.
Yeah.
Even if Nadal is not the Nadal that we knew. But anyway, no, that's a kind of joke. But while I would say that after 48 of purgatory, I don't know if you pronounce it like that, now the Italy tennis is seeing a paradise.
Yes, they should be. I know. I have a feeling you might not even go to sleep tonight, because you're still feeling that match, and you're running on adrenaline, because you've been waiting for this moment. You were there for Panatta in '76, and you were able to see Sinner do this today. And I'm happy for you, Ubaldo, because Italian tennis deserves this, and so does Sinner.
Yeah, and then, I had seen Pietrangeli winning in 59 and 60 Roland Garros on TV, white and black in Italy, white and black. There was no color TV yet. And I remember Pietrangeli beating Vermac, and then in the year, the Chilean Ayala. And but those were, let's say, easier tournaments, lands, because it was not open tennis. So there were the best players were playing, professional, with the Jack Kramer troupe. While Panatta has won, Panatta did very well because he beat Bjorn Borg, who was the champion of the 2 years before. I mean, twice in a row. So to beat the Borg in Roland Garros is a little bit like beating Djokovic in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Panatta, as you know very well, was a very gifted player. I mean, he had immense talent. He could do it all, and he was a beautiful player to watch. But I don't think he had the same insatiable appetite to win the way Sinner does. So Panatta got another, but I will be shocked if Sinner does not win a minimum in his career 7 or 8 majors. He's surely going to go into that range, and perhaps to double digits. But 7 or 8, I think, is almost a certainty, unless he becomes injury prone, unless he has some very serious injuries that keep him out of the game, because he's industrious. He works so hard. He's smart. He's got composure. He's got a complete game. I used to think that he was a little bit erratic from the back of the court. His forehand could go. I don't feel that anymore. I feel like now the whole package is there for him to consistently win majors in the years ahead.
Well, I tell you, I think he still has a margin to improve, because
yes.
For instance, in percentage of first serves, he can get better, you know, and in playing the right drop shot. I mean, he has been working a lot to produce more variety. His game before was a little bit monotone, can I say that? Always a little bit the same. While now he's capable to change, he's capable to play. There was a moment where Cahill suggested him against Medvedev to play higher balls. I mean, to do a little more top spin or lift, especially on Medvedev forehand, because at the beginning the Medvedev backhand was impossible to fight against.
And you know what, Ubaldo? Sinner took that advice. He made some very good high looping returns to the Medvedev forehand and extracted some errors by doing it. So he listened. No, all I'm saying is I think the way he plays now, he's not going to have very many bad days. And even on the days where he's struggling, as he was for 2 sets here, I think that had more to do, by the way, with Medvedev playing outstanding tennis than Sinner playing poorly. And then once he got his teeth into the match in the 3rd set, his level rose. And I thought he really played quite well over the last 3 sets.
Well, personally, I think that Sinner is a much better play on our court, indoor court, and maybe even grass, even if doesn't have so much experience on grass, because last year he made the semifinals, but he had a good draw. Then in Paris, in Roland Garros, I don't see him so, you know, I don't want to say competitive, but so good also on clay, because he's hitting so. He needs so much to play, to counter attack, to anticipate sometimes, or anyway to play on rhythm, taking a lot of chances from the baseline. And on clay, it's not easy to play the way he plays, I think.
Yes, but I think I disagree to some extent. I think he can be a big threat in Paris.
Then you're fired.
All right. Well, at least I've spoke my mind before I got fired. No, but I think Ubaldo, I really believe that he's got the ability to play great tennis on clay. Is it his best surface? No. Better on hard, but I can see him right in the thick of the battle this year. And I still think the way he has good margin on his shots right now, and he knows, I mean, the evidence was there today in some of these long rallies against Medvedev. He can stay in there in the long points, and he can do that on clay as well. And the way he moves, I think I wouldn't sell him short at Roland Garros.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Of course, then we need to see what will be his ranking, because right now he's still number 4. I mean, if Medvedev won, he would have gone to number 2. Overcoming Alcaraz, and now we have to see in the next months what happens in, especially the Master 1000, where maybe, are you going to Indian Wells or Miami? Are you planning to go there, Steve?
No, I don't know yet. But I'll certainly be following. Listen, he's going to do well in those tournaments. I don't see him having met too many letdowns, and the way that the consistency he's shown since last summer. And he was a bit unlucky at the US Open because he had cramps, or he was hurting when he played Zverev. He was not in good shape in that match, was unable to give the best account of himself. But aside from that, his record has been just astonishingly consistent. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. He's at the point now where he takes every tournament seriously. And so I think he's going to be in the hunt in every tournament as well. And I expect him to do well in Indian Wells and Miami.
You mentioned briefly his loss with Zverev at the US Open. He lost to Zverev twice at the US Open. I was thinking yesterday that Sinner was much better to have to play Medvedev than Zverev. But then after what happened today in the first two sets, I was changing my mind. I think Zverev was very unlucky because when he was up 5-4, you know, at the end, and he had two serves. And he was unlucky. I mean,
well, he was unlucky, Ubaldo. Yes, the second point at 5-all. The first one, Medvedev hit a great forehand inside out. It set up a winner. And then at 5-all was when Medvedev made the very lucky chip forehand return. Yeah. Somehow made it over the net. You're right. He was unlucky. But Ubaldo, I have to be critical of Zverev because this happens to him over and over again. 2 sets up against Thiem in the 2020 US Open final, serves for the match in the 5th set and loses there. All those matches that he played with Medvedev last year, 6 times they played, he won 1, he should have won 3. So he often is guilty of not closing out, and he had the cushion of a 2-set lead and even led 4-3 in the third with Medvedev down love 30. So I feel like Zverev has got to do a better job of closing out some of these big matches. But I'll also say this. I don't think he would have beaten Sinner today. As well as he was playing, I still think Sinner would have beaten him as well.
I don't know. Nobody can be sure about it. But, you know, Zverev, you mentioned when he lost to Thiem, those were the times when he was still doing a lot of double faults. In the pressure points. Now he's not doing that anymore, but then he's playing better with his forehand. So I thought it was very, very dangerous. Then, of course, how it's impossible to decide to say what could have happened between him and Sinner.
Yes, but remember, Ubaldo, remember that Zverev, like Medvedev, had been through an awful lot. He had 2 matches go to the 5th set tiebreak. And let's just say that he had beaten Medvedev in the 4th set or the 5th and came into this final. He would have been vulnerable physically too. And I think Sinner could have taken advantage of it. Sinner, I suppose this was, you know, this was sort of the ideal time for him to make his breakthrough because, you know, he was ready for it. He was confident. He got some help from Djokovic. And then today, he just earned it with his fighting spirit and a much better level of play over the last 3 sets than what he showed the first two sets.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I mean, now we will see what will happen. As you know, Sinner is 22 years old, so we have to see what he will do. Last year he had won the tournament, which is starting, I think, tomorrow, Montpellier, but where he's not going, of course. But February is a month where not many big tournaments are, even if there is Rotterdam, where last year Medvedev beat in the final Sinner. So we will see. I mean, it's an interesting year for sure. We know that Novak Djokovic cannot win the Grand Slam, cannot make the Grand Slam even this year. Now, of course, someone is asking, but do you think Sinner can make the Grand Slam? And I say, hey, keep calm, keep quiet. Because in Italy, I can tell you this, in Italy, it never happened that the sports newspapers had the first 4 or 5 pages all about Sinner with soccer at the end of the newspaper. That has never happened. I've never seen it in my life.
Good. Well, it's good for tennis and good for Sinner. But you know what, Ubaldo? The other thing he has going for him, I honestly believe that Darren Cahill is making a big difference, because Cahill has been around the upper levels of the game. He coached Agassi, he coached Simona Halep, he's coached a lot of great players. He's to me, one of the more intelligent observers in the game. We hear it in his commentary all the time, and I've heard it when I've had private discussions with him. I mean, he's a very discerning observer of tennis and sensible. And I think he's done Sinner a world of good in terms of the mental, especially with the mental side of the game, and preparing for big matches and dealing with crucial moments. And I think Cahill in his corner is going to I think it's really going to matter.
Listen, Steve, yes, he said, he keeps saying to Yannick, keep smiling, enjoy while you play tennis, don't get over either excited or over pressure. I mean, I think that's a big difference with his previous coach, because Riccardo Piatti was very good. He had a lot of merits in helping Sinner to grow, but he was also a little bit anxious, putting, very sort of more dramatic, I mean, and Sinner is a young kid. He needs also to have fun. Cahill is funny when he says that Sinner is horrible to him because he wants to get money from him playing cards,
Yeah.
And also says, and I must say, I don't know if you appreciate what Sinner said in his final speech during the prize ceremony, because he said that he is very grateful to his parents because they gave him the freedom when he was 13, 14 years old to make his own choice, to never force him to do something different. And it is true, because it's not easy when you're 14 years old to leave your family, leave the mountain, the ski, and go to play tennis somewhere else alone, without even talking in Italian so well, because his native language was German at home. So, I mean, really, I think it's a good example for the boys, and also all the Italian children have seen him today. They will think that, okay, in tennis, it's never over until it's over. You still have to fight. Even if you lose 2 sets, you can still win. And all these things came from a kid who is very well educated, good manners, always smiling, gentle. I mean, a nice person.
No doubt about that. And very level-headed. And he's nice to credit his parents, but it depends to a large degree on himself too. He's got to go out there and learn from his experiences and deal with the pressure, and he's done all that. And he was very he also kept his cool when things were not going his way for a few years, and Carlos was getting all the attention, and he was okay with that. And even when he lost the match to Alcaraz at the US Open, which was a heartbreaker a couple of years ago, to have the match point and then eventually lose in 5, he dealt with that. He gave himself time to grow into his talent, and he's really done it now.
Well, I think, dear Steve, that this is we have explored all what we could about this first slam of the year. I was very glad, as usual, to talk with you, and I will talk to you also for the women's tournament and the win of Sabalenka in a few minutes. But right now, thanks a lot to my old friend, colleague, and Hall of Famer, Steve Flink. I really like him as so much that I'm glad to see him, especially when Sinner wins, but anytime.
Thank you, Ubaldo.